Now, when you trade for a player like Jimmy Butler, there's so many obviously great things that comes along with it. You get one of the premier wings in all of the NBA that gets after it on both sides of the ball. We look at Jimmy Butler, he can be used in so many different ways. Defensively, he can guard the opposing team's best perimeter scorer, stick to that matchup all night. Or if you want him to play off the ball as a help defender, he can be just as big as a nuisance, playing the passing lanes, being an outstanding help defender, rotating down to protect the rim and also secure the stop by grabbing rebounds. And then we look at Jimmy Butler on the offensive side of the ball, one of the more underrated offensive forces in the NBA, but you have a guy that has a range of methods when it comes to getting the basketball in the hole, 3-level scorer in the post, and also he can get to the free throw line. And also Jimmy Butler, the basketball player, he's a guy that can impact the game with his playmaking, getting all of his teammates involved, reading the floor and making the correct play. So when the Golden State Warriors, when they traded for Jimmy Butler, the basketball player, everybody knew that they were getting a perennial two-way triple-double threat each and every night. But one side of this trade that does not get talked about enough, this other side of Jimmy Butler that is so beneficial, that is so impactful and makes everybody better, is Jimmy Butler, the teammate. And Jimmy Butler as a teammate, it is something that gets talked about. It's been something that's been talked about the entirety of his career, Jimmy Butler as a teammate and Jimmy Butler as a member of an organization, but it's usually in a negative manner. And I'm obviously making this video because I think it should be the complete opposite. It should be talked about in a positive manner. But we look at these situations that Jimmy Butler has been in. He's been in a situation a few times where he's had to leave an organization because they weren't on the same page or they weren't on good terms. And those organizations are the Minnesota Timberwolves, who he's playing against right now in the NBA playoffs, so that's a little bit cool. Also the Philadelphia 76ers, and then also the most recent one, the Miami Heat. And usually when we have these situations when a superstar player or an all-star player wants out of an organization, no matter what, they're painted out to be the bad guy. And it's a lot more complex than that, than what the media is spewing out. We'll never really know what's going on behind these closed doors, what's going on when all of these cameras are off, when there's not a bunch of microphones in these guys' faces. I just feel like that's not something you can know unless you're very deep in. But nonetheless, still, when I look at Jimmy Butler over the course of his career, I see his presence and his energy as nothing but having positive impacts on the teams that he's been on. And we look at this current situation right now with the Golden State Warriors. We look at the situation that they were in pre Jimmy Butler and post Jimmy Butler. It's like a light switch flipping on and off. It's two completely different things, because we look at the Golden State Warriors before getting Jimmy Butler. It looks like their ceiling was making the play-in tournament, and their floor was potentially missing the playoffs in all of totality. And then they get Jimmy Butler, and they instantly become one of the best teams in the Western Conference and in all of the NBA, playing tremendous defense and then also getting a boost offensively where it was needed, where their boost was needed at the most. And I know the Golden State Warriors, they ultimately did end up going to the play-in tournament, but that's because the Western Conference was so goddamn jam-packed, and they finished with a decent record in the Western Conference. But nonetheless, I know the X's and O's. Jimmy Butler, he's going to come in and make a team better, but for them to be in that situation, it takes a lot more than that. It takes building a relationship with your teammates. It takes forming chemistry with your teammates. Like, this Jimmy Butler is not no ordinary basketball player in my mind, or at least when it comes to playoff basketball. I made a lot of Miami Heat videos over the years, and I watched Jimmy Butler in the playoffs. He is something special when it comes to playoff basketball. I believe he is a superstar. So for him it says a lot about him to be dropped into a system like the Golden State Warriors, a very unique system. We don't see no other teams with a system like the Golden State Warriors, but to be dropped into that system and be so brought in to be able to make yourself this effective, this to make yourself this effective this quickly in just a half of a season. It tells it says a lot about all the works that he's putting in with the organization and then putting in with his teammates. And then we get to see the stuff that we do get to see on cameras and the stuff that we do get to hear from the TV and our phones. We look at this relationship that he has with Buddy Hield. Making these personal connections like this in just a half of a season, it is big time. And we look at Buddy Hield over these last couple of games. We look at him in the Game 7 against the Houston Rockets, stepped up big time until Steph Curry could get heated up. And then we look at Buddy Hield. Steph Curry goes down and he goes down in the second quarter of this game. Jimmy Butler and Buddy Hield steps up to help them remain to keep that lead and close out that game. Both of them guys passing the ball to each other and assisting each other, getting buckets down the stretch. That is big time for a role player like Jimmy Butler. And we just hear all the funny stuff after the game when these guys are getting interviewed and asking questions about each other. And then we look at what Draymond Green is saying about Jimmy Butler. He speaks of how since Jimmy Butler has arrived, the energy has just shifted for the Golden State Warriors in a positive way. He's revitalized these guys, re-energized these guys, and then we just see it with the results in the win and loss column. So I just thought I was just watching the Golden State Warriors and just thinking about it like, yes, it's terrible when Steph Curry goes down, especially with the hamstring injury, because we know those injuries can be lingering. But it's not time to hit the panic button yet, because you have this player in Jimmy Butler who is used to being the alpha dog and used to carrying teams when they have injuries or when they have less than the opponent that they're going to. So it's big time to have a guy like Jimmy Butler. And then we look at the last team that he was on. The last team that he was on, he did a lot of guys. He made life better for a lot of guys in that Miami Heat organization. We look at some undrafted players. We look at Gabe Vincent. We look at Duncan Robinson. We look at Max Strus. All of these guys came into the NBA undrafted, played with Jimmy Butler alongside him in those playoff runs, played some great basketball, and they're feeding off of his energy. And these guys were paid handsomely. Duncan Robinson paid handsomely. Gabe Vincent went to the Lakers, got a handsome contract. Max Strus to the Cleveland Cavaliers, got a handsome contract. That's all after playing alongside Jimmy Butler and him elevating those guys' level of play. Not to say that they're bad players now, but they're not looking as good as they were when they were playing next to Jimmy Butler. And then we look at the aftermath of him leaving the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat, in my opinion, they still were a very talented roster, and I thought they were a roster that could get into the playoffs in the Eastern Conference with Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo. Those are two all-star caliber players with a Hall of Fame coach in Eric Spoelstra, and in my opinion, a bunch of good role players. But we've seen that the energy that they had once Jimmy Butler was gone, once Jimmy Butler started feuding with the team, and at that moment, you know he was gone. The energy of the Miami Heat was just different. I think they went on like a 9 or 10 game losing streak, and then their last 2 home games of the playoffs to go out in a sweep, they get absolutely blown off of the court. So the media, they'll let you depict in these organizations, they'll lead you to believe that Jimmy Butler is some evil person, a person that gives up on a franchise. But Jimmy Butler, in my opinion, he's just a guy that understands, that understands his wealth and how much he should be paid and how much he should be valued and how he should be respected. So, and for that, I'll always be a huge fan of Jimmy Butler. And I think the Golden State Warriors, they got really lucky getting him, because a lot of people, like I said, you look at his regular season numbers, they don't look impressive. But when it's time for the playoffs and it's do or die, he's going to do whatever it takes to win a ball game. So Stephen Curry, they say he's day to day with his hamstring injury, but I think that we're looking at this roster it's as good as a roster as Jimmy Butler has had when he was playing with the Miami Heat, when guys were going down with injury. So I think they're going to definitely be able to be competitive, and they already stole a game on the road. So that's going to buy Stephen Curry a little bit of time. Worst case scenario, maybe they have to wait long, and the worst case scenario is that they're just down 2-1 in this series because they don't have Stephen Curry. But if you're down 2-1 in the series is not over. You can get your best player back, and then you will see what happens. But that's what I want to talk about with you guys today. And let me know what you think down in the comment section. Leave a like if you enjoy, and then subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man.